again, my friends. Welcome back to another tutorial for you. This time I'm going to talk about OBS's Source Clone. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm going to do this video is because I was asked to do it and go a little bit more in depth on how to use source copy to really just transform your streams and make them something completely unique. Okay, so here in my tutorial OBS, I'm going to show you Source Clone and really what it's going to look like. So you go down to your source list and you would hit add after you've added this in, and you would go to Source Clone, and you'll name it whatever you want and then add it in. And when you're in here, you get to choose some different things. There's source, current scene, and previous scene. We'll go over each of these, but let's start with source. When you go to the clone, you can choose anything that exists in your sources to duplicate. So I've decided to go ahead and use my OBS virtual camera while I'm recording to send it to the tutorial OBS, and I'm adding then the source clone of, well, this feed right into my OBS. Now I have me and me. Now you may be wondering, okay, well, why didn't you just add a second version of your camera input and just do that? OBS can't actually be able to send to two identical sources when you're doing something like a camera feed, your gameplay, a capture card, anything like that. It can only go to a specific source, and if you add multiple of them, it doesn't understand that. That's why Source Clone really does come in handy for a variety of different things. So with Source Clone, you're able to then take your camera and you can make another version of it. And essentially what's happening is OBS is sending the signal to that one source, and then source copy is just grabbing whatever's being rendered right there and just saying, hey, mirror that. Now you would think this would be something normally standard in OBS, but again, this isn't exactly something everybody seeks out, except for, you know, us crazy streamers that like to do really weird stuff. Okay, so here I've got two identical versions of myself right on the screen. One is my camera, one is the source clone. So one of the interesting things you can do with the source clone when it comes to duplicating this and doing something different is, imagine this was my gameplay. If I went ahead and on my source clone add a dynamic delay, which is something that you can get as a plugin, what this will do is give you the ability to basically say, don't render this until this much time later. What's great about this is you can turn it into a sort of rewind feature. So here I have it set for 20 seconds, and I've already set up my hotkeys to demonstrate this because I didn't want to just sit and bore you with that. So when I hit my hotkey and I hit for rewind, you're going to notice that, well, he's going backwards. And that's exactly what you would want it to do once it catches to that point where you're 20 seconds now behind. Now you're starting to see what it actually looks like. And so this way you can then have your current gameplay right here on this part of your screen. Then you have the playback, your instant replay right next to you. And so this way you can create some very unique things for your viewers to give that a little bit of extra value to the production. Now, of course, I've got to fast forward it in order to get it back to where it needs to be, where we're perfectly synced up again. But as you can see, it's actually working pretty solid. I mean, there's really not a whole lot going wrong with it, and we're just waiting for me to catch up to me. And I'm still waiting until we get to that point, which we finally did. But that's just one instance of something you can do when it comes to manipulating the source clone. Another way you can manipulate this is essentially just adding a blur filter onto yourself, and this way you can have sort of a double effect. The reason that this becomes so great is that your original camera is not affected by any of these filters then. So if you wanted to make sure that on one scene, your camera's only going to be affected by certain things on that particular scene, you don't have to worry about how it's going to affect on other scenes. You use that source clone to basically say, here's my camera, but I don't want it to affect the actual camera. So here I'm currently on my normal camera look that really has no background, no nothing, and I just wanted to make sure that I show you what this looks like because on my raid scene, I do use multiple source clones in order to make this work. So if I switch to my raid scene, you're gonna see there are a lot more versions of me. When my raid alert triggers, I have different positions that I wind up with that are synced with the music, all controlled with StreamerBot, but this helps me to go ahead and be able to manipulate different versions of my camera in different places without really having to affect the main camera at all. So one of the things that I do want to kind of mention with this is that when it comes to my raid alert scene, and actually a lot of things I use in my stream, I use Source Clone to disguise my scene changes. This is actually a very useful trick because this is how I make sure that things stay seamless and no one knows when I've changed to a scene that actually is going to do a whole lot of different stuff and be unique. So what I would do in here would actually be we're going to add another source clone. And on the source clone, I'm going to go down to previous scene. If I don't need the audio, I would click this off, which generally I go ahead and I have my mic nested in with my camera, but here I don't have that option. Now, I clicked OK. I'm going to go ahead and enable this source clone. So here's what's going to happen is I'm going to go to my test grounds where I have a background already set up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk while I change the scenes. So that way, if you focus on me and just focus on me and not what I'm doing, I'm wondering if you even saw a change at all. Now, I invite you to go ahead and look around to see what's actually happening when I'm clicking through the two different scenes. As I'm clicking through, you're not noticing anything changing here, but you're noticing in the source list, it's all changing because source clone, when it comes to a previous scene, will take that entire scene you were just on, keep it active, and display it. That way, what you can do then is you can add the other things into this. You can add more to it without being destructive to that particular scene. So that way, when my raid alert goes off, you're going to see how the source clone actually functions for me when it comes to previous scenes.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening!
And so now I'm using multiple source clones to pull a lot of this off and, have the sounds go off and everything. You can see I'm all over the place. Because of the source clones, I've also used move transition to make this happen. I'm using recursion effect right now. You can see the variety of ways I am using all of these different things with source clone to really create something new, different, unique, and just pure fun. And right now, it's still in the raid checkpoint scene, but then there it goes. It actually went back to the original screen capture mode that I was using before. And you guys don't notice it because the previous scene and the scene I'm going to are exactly the same thing. But this is just a little taste of what you can wind up doing when it comes to source clone, because it provides you so many avenues to create something without being destructive to the original. You don't have to apply this to just your camera or just gameplay. I've seen people do this when it comes to source text, when I've seen images. I've seen all sorts of ways that they have taken one source, cloned it, and then transformed it into something else without being destructive to the original. Source clone winds up giving you the ability to take so many different things and bring it to a new level. Now, of course, the last one that's here is current scene. And really all this does is duplicate exactly what's on this scene. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a scene like this and show you how the current scene can really wind up being something to help you duplicate. So again, we go and we get our source clone and we add a new one. I'm actually just going to go ahead and use one that already exists. Now, as you can see, this is on current scene. And this is all it does right now. But we were able to add a blur effect to it because that's still on there, is this composite blur. But then we've also cropped it to where you can't really tell. If I was to expand it out, now we can make it bigger, we can make it smaller, and I can adjust this cropping however I would want to do. You can manipulate your scene and make a slightly different thing for that scene. So for instance, this is basically how Nutty would use the same kind of effect to pull off the nice blurred out version behind something to make the other part stand out, to give it that cleaner, more effective look, is simply to use a source clone, make a blur or darken it or however you need to do it, then put something on top of it. This is a way you can create a very clean, minimalist looking overlay. And yeah, it may take a little bit more work, but the overall result is just gorgeous. So whether you need to duplicate your gameplay and do an instant replay with it, or you just want to create something that looks cleaner and a little bit more visually striking using a current scene, or you just want to trick everybody into not realizing that you actually changed scenes, this is how you can do it. Source Clone gives you a huge amount of freedom for really as simple of an idea as it actually is. Again, combining it with other plugins, other filters, and so many other ways, you can go absolutely crazy with really any idea you want. And the best part is, you don't have to worry about screwing up your original. It's a good deal. So that's all I've got for you for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more stuff, hit that subscribe button, let me know. And honestly, if you came up with something really cool, let me know in the comments. I love seeing what everybody else does. So with that, my friends, I'm taking off. I'll see you on the next video. Have a great time using Source Clone to your advantage.